Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this video I'm going to go through some tips and tricks that everyone should know when touring, traveling, whatever, especially if you're out remote. Now, I mean, if you're on the coastline close to major cities and what have you, it's not so bad, but if you like to get out and about, like the places that we do, being living in the centre of Australia, there's a lot of remote different places around, so we got to make sure that your vehicle's 100% when you're going somewhere. So we'll start off with, well, it's probably one of the biggest things, servicing. Now, I work in the automotive industry, work at a mechanics workshop. The biggest thing that I see, especially after people coming in through, coming down from north around Darwin and that, and people coming up from Adelaide and Port Augusta, going down some really rough roads, making sure the vehicle's up to scratch, especially after something like that. So, doing a vehicle mechanical inspection. Now, we call them bush safety checks for a reason, especially, going through some really corrugated roads. I'll put a clip in a minute, like some of the roads and tracks around here, they can get pretty gnarly, but alright, so I do this pretty often anyway, but even now I'm noticing a few things on my vehicle. So, alright, so first thing I do myself, alright, now the Hilux is pretty easy. Oil, now I've checked the oil already and it's pretty good. So I'm actually due for a service in about 4,000 kilometers, so just give it a bit of a top up already. Alright, so knowing where your oil dipstick is to be able to read level, right, is really important. So pulling it out, wiping it off, putting it back in, and then measuring it on level surface without the engine running. Alright, and also knowing where the fill point is. So on here, all fill points just here. Alright, is power steering fluid. Now, suggestion would be that you want to keep some power steering fluid in the vehicle just in case you run into a bit of a leak, because some of these tracks are going to be horrendous without power steering. Alright, as crazy as it sounds, wiper blades, alright, is one, but also making sure that you top up the reservoir. Surprisingly, especially during winter when it's muddy and that, you want to have clean windows, be able to see where you're going. Now, coolant. Now, this one's pretty simple with this one. So you put a low point, alright, and a full point. Now, on the angle that I'm on, it's kind of reading a little bit lower, but when it's sitting on level ground, it's sitting flush. Alright, so knowing how to access your coolant is always going to be a must, and carrying some spare with you is probably always a good step too. Airbox. Now, air filters can get pretty dusty, especially on some dusty roads, but yeah, that'd be the first thing, and knowing how to check it as well. So on the Hilux is fairly easy. Alright, just open it up. Looks fairly clean on top, but that's the engine side. And then you open it up, it's just fairly dusty on the inside. But for us, we've actually got a snorkel. Alright, so yeah, it's a lot cleaner than what it would be if we didn't have that snorkel. Alright, and you just do that back up. Make sure when you're checking it, just make sure it's not getting pinched, alright, because otherwise dust will get in through. Now, next one, brake fluid. Now, suggestion would be to carry some spare of that too. So you're going to be carrying power steering fluid, coolant, brake fluid, and even some engine oil, even a spare filter if you're going to go really remote. Keeping a spare filter is always handy. But what I noticed just now, doing my checks, so just under there, it's actually a nut missing for the bracket for the brake piston. So it's always a good thing to just keep an eye out on stuff like that. But the one spare that I'd always carry doesn't seem like it would be needed a lot. I mean, again, if you're going to go remote places, you want to keep some spares. The number one spare that I always carry, apart from the air filter and maybe some radiator hoses, brake pads. You'd be surprised, especially going through some really dusty conditions, some really muddy conditions. You can actually wear out your brakes really quickly. The one real main mod that I'd be looking at doing, especially if you're going to go really remote, especially whether you don't have phone signal, and even with Starlink, communication's pretty important. The first mod that I do to any vehicle, and what I recommend it for anyone to do to any vehicle, right, UHF. Now, in our case, we put it on a pass-through, right? So you just pull it out, you can stash it away in the glove box when you finish using it, all right? And you're good to go. Now, communication with that one's going to be pretty big because you want to be able to have communication while on the road. Other people in front of you, oncoming people letting you know of obstructions or anything on the road. There might be a road closure in front of you for medical reasons. Royal Flying Doctors may have cut off the road to use as an airstrip, which does happen. So communication's a big one, especially if you're trying to overtake someone. You can actually radio them if they've got to radio themselves and be able to safely get around them. So that'd be my first mod that I do to any vehicle before anything else. Right, now we're saying that it's going to come in with an antenna. You don't always need an antenna connected to a bull bar. So if you don't have a bull bar, all right, you can still have a UHF mounted. It's a little bit more secure, not as secure as the bull bar mounted, but on the Jeep we don't have a bull bar. All right, so the ideal way for us is you can buy brackets like this and you mount it off like that. All right, you run the cable through there, or if you mount it up high enough, you can actually run it down through there. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'll be doing. Another thing, if you're going to go remote, not even so much if you're going to go remote, but it's a good thing to have while you're traveling anyway, access to water. So we keep a 20-litre jerry can in the vehicle, as well as for water, a 20-litre jerry can for fuel. Now, for us, we've got a 140-litre tank, but we still carry that one just to be safe. Like, you just never know. So another one, bin tire repair kit. You'd be surprised how often over the years I've seen people traveling around the country. They get a nail in the tire, stuck on the side of the road. It was the spare, or they've got no spare left, and they're stuck on the side of the road having to get towed into the nearest town, which could be hundreds of kilometres away, because they don't have a tire repair kit. All right. Now the next thing that comes along with that would be a way to pump your tyres up. All right. So we've got the tyre gauge as well as the hose. Now, in our case, we don't have ours hard mounted. We've got ours secured down in here. All right, so an air compressor, which we've got ours on a switch, but you don't have to have it hardwired. Little portable option would be good. You'd be surprised how often that'll get you out of trouble. But another tip that ties in with that: drop in tire pressures. All right, so I get mine set to 36 psi, 38 depending. So I got 36 in the front, 38 in the rear. Now, going down some really rough corrugated roads, you want to have your tire pressures dropped. Now, we dropped ours down for Fink, pretty rough corrugated roads. I dropped the fronts down to about 18 pound and then 20 in the rear. So you get a fair few different versions. I think the tire inflator that I just had. It's probably the quickest and easiest one. Just under the cap, plug it on, drop the tyre pressures. Without having a hose connected, it actually will reduce the air out of it. Now, checking over your tyres is probably an important one too. Now, at the moment, we've got a little bit of outside edge wear on this one. All right, and the sidewalls are all pretty good. I do need a wheel alignment. Now, that ties me to the next one after this, but we've got a bit more of an aggressive all-terrain at the front, and then sort of factory. What the vehicles come with from factory is an all-terrain, right? But I'm noticing that we've got little gouge taken out there. All right. Now pulling it open, I can't see any steel belts or anything, but there is a little bit of chipping as well on the tread also. And then coming over to our spare. I'm only running one spare at the moment, but you can also see on the spare that we've had a fair bit of wheel spin on some rocky sections of the track, and it's actually ripping up the tread. All right. That's from hard wheeling when we were winching. So we've got one spare on all the time. If we go remote, we always carry a second. You're not always going to have the flashiest of tyres. Now, as I said, the two rear ones that I've got, including my spare, and my other spare's the same. They're what Hiluxes come from factory. So they're an all-terrain tyre. It's not a really aggressive all-terrain tyre, but it's an all-terrain tyre. We get most places with that. The only reason we've got a little more aggressive ones on the front is because the off-roading that we do, losing grip on the front, whereas on the rear, we've got diff lock. So chuck the diff locker in, gets us out of trouble. Just gives us that bit extra grip on the front. And the suggestion would be that if you're gonna go off-road remote more, a bit more of an aggressive all-terrain. But it's not, you don't have to have it. But keeping up your wheel alignments, keeping up your pressures, will actually extend the life of your tyre. Now, it's another mod, but it's one thing that I think, if you're going to go remote, you should have. It's decent shade. Now, this one here is a bit of an upgrade for us. So we did have a fold out awning previously, just rolled out, and then you set it up in the guy ropes, whatever. Now we've just done a 180-degree awning that kind of folds out both directions. I'll put a little thing in here. In the centre of Australia, like we had 100 days of 40 degrees over summer. So that was averaged over 100 degrees. I think it was, if we averaged it out over a 4-month period, we had a 38-degree average. But it dry, intense heat. And if you're traveling remote, you're going to be hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest help. So water, fuel, communications, right, and shade. If you can get in contact with people, but they're hours away, you're not going to be sitting inside the car waiting for help to arrive. You want to be in the shade, keeping cool and hydrating. Bring it under here. It's the easiest access point that I have to these ones, but check your suspension. All right, so on this vehicle we've got upgraded rear shackles, right, with grease points. Now, not all of them come with grease points, and I can even see now that I've broken a grease point on the top of the shackle, right? But all your suspension components that can be greased, even the drive line, right, being your drive shafts and all that sort of stuff, if you have access to a grease gun, or even go out and buy a grease gun just for maintenance sake, right, grease it. You'd be surprised how often, like, you go remote, getting with dust, and you'd be squeaking along the track because you've got a bit of dust in the rubber bush. Next point that I'll be looking at, so normally in here, we've got our second spare that mounts up here when we do mount it, right? But just visually inspecting under your vehicle. Now we've got about 2-inch lift in our vehicle, so we can get under a bit better. But if you're needing to, all right, jack the vehicle up, come in on the back here, chock the front wheels, jack up the vehicle, and inspect underneath the back of the vehicle. Drop the vehicle down, do the same at the front. Go and look under every single part of the vehicle. All right. Now, another really important thing that I think a lot of people kind of miss, right, is the ability to service your own vehicle, like minor servicing. Now, if you've got no handbrake on the rear of your vehicle and you're at remote, now on the Hilux here we've got little rubber grommets there. All right, it's a little inspection hatch there, and then you've got another one, all right, just up. All right, bring the camera down. Another little rubber grommet there. All right, so if you actually remove that rubber grommet, there's a little cog in there that adjusts the shoes inside the disc, right, inside the drum. Now that'll actually help adjust the handbrake. Next thing is just checking for leakage. Like, that's your fill point for your diff, right? And you got your drainage point there. But just going around checking. And if you're seeing like wet spots underneath here, like moisture with really heavy dust build up on there, chances are you've got a leak. All right. Now we're doing pretty good at the moment. All my suspension's all good. The bushes are all good. There's a bit of surface cracking on some of these bushes, so I might need to address that soon, but there's no leakage. I've got no oil leaking at the back of the drums, right? No seepage on the shocks, no damaged wires. Here's a wheel speed sensor for that one, so that can be a little bit tricky, especially if it gets hit. There can be a heap of codes that come up on the dash, and you could be out in the middle of nowhere with a code because you've broken something. Now, Hiluxes are notorious for diff lock, right? So there's a guard there, but there's nothing there to protect that bit of wiring, right? So what is on my list for a little mod is there's another wire there to protect the guard to protect that wire. It also helps to protect the wheel speed sensor a little bit over on that side too, because the last thing you want is when you're at remote and you need that diff lock, the wire's broken and you got no way of getting out without that diff lock. Coming in here to your front suspension. Now you want to check in here. All right, so you got a bush there, and then you get your shock towel. All right. Now in ours we've got a spacer block lift kit in ours. All right, but you want to make sure that the nuts are on your top hat for your shock, because the last thing you want to do is driving down the road, hit a bit of a bump and your shock falls out and then it damages something. All right, so I always check them on a daily basis as well. Even the bushes for your sway bar. All right, now on the front's going to be a little bit easier. All right, but jacking up the front tire and actually grabbing the tire and going side to side like this, and even up and down, just to feel it for the wheel bearing is gone. Like there, I know on my Hilux it's one piece, so it's actually a sealed wheel bearing assembly. Right, I don't keep a spare one of those because at the end of the day, the chances of me having to replace one is pretty slim. But checking on that before you go away, just to make sure that you don't have that. Now, a lot of mechanics will actually offer a proper safety inspection. Even going to Petters, they offer a safety check for brake, suspension, that sort of stuff. But they'll notify you if there's any oil leaks under the vehicle. You just go take it to a mechanic, get it sorted. But it's easier to get it fixed in town than what it is stuck on the side of the road. All right, jacks. Now, we've got a high lift jack. I don't really take it out, all right, because at the end of the day, I haven't needed to. But when we do go with the caravan, I do take it anyway, just in case. Now, knowing where your jack and all your tools are is important, all right? So in our case, it lives under here, under this little hatch here. So you've got your bottle jack and your tools in the plastic, in the bag there. All right. Now put it under. Well, in our case, it comes factory in that spot, but I made sure that I put the car seat in that spot because it's a less likely spot that I need to get access to storage. Now for us, on the other side, we've also got our cable for our winch, shovel, and another tire deflator. Now, we've had it happen a couple of times while I've been away, and we end up setting, we've actually set up something a little bit different, but you know, the one thing that I do recommend to people, especially if they're traveling out remote on their own, if you've got fuel, all right, you want to have something else just in case. All right, now this is a bit of a King's, this is a King's one, right? So we got a power bank, but it also is a jump starter. All right, so with this one, you got dongle, plugs in the top, push the button. All right, and on this one we do actually have a boost function as well. So you got a 4-start function, which also it's 4-start function. If you've got a really flat battery, you press that, connect it up. Yeah, that just goes alligator clips, positive to positive, negative to negative, and you've got a couple of chargers in here as well. Now, in our case, we've got it integrated into our Red Vision system, a relay just here that connects our second battery to our main battery via this little link here. So we push a button and that connects and runs power from our second battery to our main battery. All right, and if we need to jump start the vehicle that way, when we're done, turn it off. Surprisingly, we've had to use it a couple of times. Now, yeah, I'm lucky I've just got the app on my phone, so if it happens, I just, you know, open the app and do it that way. But yeah, the next one, if you're out remote and you need first aid supplies and you don't have at least a basic first aid kit, all right, you're kind of a bit stuffed. So what we've got a few. We've got one in the caravan, one in the canopy, and we've got one just under the passenger seat in the back. I think another one that should be on the list of mods would be lights. Now, we're a little bit over the top with our setup. Like, we've got spotlights, we've also got roof rack lights, side lights. All right. So yeah, there's no real issues with us at dark. But again, like going real remote, last thing we do is hit a cow or a kangaroo or something. You know, given some of the places that we go, we've also got a winch. All right, and we were running soft shackles. All right, less likely to break. Someone. The amount of injuries that I've seen from those metal shackles is just a little bit ridiculous. But we run wireless remote. All right. Now this one's pretty simple. We just turns on, all right, and you get your in and your out function. Turns off. All right, so that lives in the car. But we've also got that wired one in the back that we can just plug it in if we need to. Now on ours, just in here, all right, it says here's the headlight here. Just in here we've got our isolator for our winch. All right, so turn on, winch is live. Turn off, winch is safe. Now between the winch and the isolator, we don't actually have a fuse. I probably should run a fuse, but there isn't one. But yeah, between the fuse and so between the isolator and the battery, we actually have a fuse. Now that ties me into my battery link function. So again, if I'm going to go use my winch, as I turn my winch on and I'm going to start using it, I'll actually turn this battery on as well. So it'll help support the main battery. So you've got power coming from here, going into your main battery to help support, because these winches do draw a lot of power. Even the more expensive ones are always going to draw a lot of power. But in line with the winch, we've also got our recovery gear, which sits just here. All right. So that's got our snatch straps and our tree trunk protectors and winch extension straps and soft shackles. Even got gloves in there as well. But yeah, it's a little bit overkill, but like our setup's a little bit different. Like we've got our Red Vision TVMS, their inverter remote, the inverter over there, but we run 2 alternator chargers. Like obviously the second one's if we want to put in a hit more power, but we do also have the ability that if the main one breaks, we have a second one that we can use to charge our battery. All right. Now I'm in the process of removing the fixed solar from there. All right, just run the solar blanket off that and run our fixed solar through there. All right, we've also got Starlink. So if we go really remote, we still do have communication. Now, with TVMS Rogue that does control our lights and everything, I'm in the process of hooking up the compressor to that as well. So I can remotely adjust that. But I guess it really depends on, you know, each person's setup. Like we tow a caravan as well. So we've ended up just replacing a set of towing mirrors, right? They just fold out. Okay. But it also gives you the ability to have 2 different mirrors for each spot. Now, this mirror here is going to catch the everyday bit of view that you want to see, which is actually still bigger than the factory. Right, so the factory mirror is probably about there. So you've got that added extra bit there, plus the ability to see the lines a bit better. But if you're not towing, all right, just push them back in. They do poke out a little bit further, so they're about that, yeah, much further than the factory ones, but you got a lot more view. All right. And the indicator's a lot better on these too. So you can see how fresh these are. Still got the plastic on, but before I forget, yes. So we've got our shovel mounted here. Recovery track's mounted up there. Starlink is mounted there. All right, so that was a Gen 2. We've cut the base and the motor out and just added it into a toolbox. So that's permanently mounted. All right. So a lot of this stuff lives in the vehicle full time. All right. Yes, it is a bit heavy, but you know, rather carry it around with us all the time, even with all this space in the back taken up, like the camp chairs and stuff, that they come out, but we just haven't taken them out. But you've got all that space still there. I mean, we can't use this as a regular ute, but we've got access to storage, kitchen, fridge, all the time. All right. Yeah, you can never really be too safe. So let me know what you think. Is there anything else that you guys do differently? Like, that's realistically my tips and tricks for traveling remote, but for that. But yeah, let me know. Put a comment down below. What's other stuff that you guys carry? Are we carrying too much? Are we not carrying enough? Now, we're in the process of adding a PLB to our setup as well, but it's not really needed at the moment. But alright guys, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think. Have we missed anything? Have we gone too far? But alright, thanks for watching.